Hi everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Pirate Racing Club. This time I will be my own guest. I will talk a bit about myself and answer to some questions I ask my guests and more. Like this, you get to know the person behind the mic, me. Sit back, relax, and join the club. Let's get straight into it. Who am I? Well, my name is Florian and I'm from Belgium. I was born on January 26, 1995, so when this episode is released, I am 28 years old. Or young, depends how you want to look at it. I love cars in every form. Race cars, old cars, new cars, tuned cars, you name it. When I was a little child, I used to play with toy cars. I had a lot of them. If you would ask me how many, I wouldn't be able to reply to that. Baskets and baskets full of little toy cars. I played almost every day with them. I grew up in a family where cars were a big subject. Two cousins of me were always active in the tuning scene, tuning their cars, going to tuning meetings and events, playing video games about cars and racing. For example, Need for Speed. They watched Formula One. I have an older brother who was the one that got influenced by them first. He got into cars and watching Formula One as well. He started to watch it together with his friends, making predictions on who was gonna finish where in the top 10, making it a whole competition between them. So naturally, I started to watch together with them too. From one came the other, and boom, I dreamt of being a racing driver. Eventually, I pursued this dream and started karting when I was 23. Since motorsport on every level is expensive, I went for the cheapest option, which was indoor karting. I participated in a championship of an indoor karting here in Antwerp. I had zero expectations. I knew I was gonna compete to people who did this for years and years since they were kids. For me it was the first time, so of course I didn't expect to win my first race. I remember it as it was yesterday. We were divided in two groups, a fast one and a less fast one. And I was in the second group. I managed to qualify myself in second place and obviously had a lot of stress right before the start. I had a decent start and managed to stay in second right behind the first one. But then in the last few corners of the first lap, someone dive bombed full speed and crashed harder into me than the first one. Where I eventually finished, I don't know anymore. But from that day on, the guy that dive bombed me became my arch enemy. After some races, I started to be more and more competitive and started to take a lot of wins and podiums. Together with some friends I met at the karting, we started our own karting team for fun. We mostly participated in endurance karting races together. We won many races. Our team still exists, and from time to time we participate in a race together. In 2019, I made a step to cars. I started racing in the European VW Fun Cup. This is an endurance championship with old VW Beetles converted to race cars. The first race was at Metais, a small track in the French part of Belgium. We won that race in our class. It was an amazing feeling. To race in cars and to win in it. It only fueled my dream and hunger to become a professional racing driver. During the race at Solder that year, we started on the back of the grid. We won that race. It gave me motivation and approval that I am a good driver. It made me confident to go for it, go after a career. That year, we became vice champion. A year later, in 2020, during COVID, I started to work with a management. I was very hopeful in starting a proper professional career in racing because you have a management now. What can go wrong? They will work for you and make sure you get into a good car and make good deals. That was what I thought. A few months later, we had a Porsche GT4 test. It's a day I still dream about and a day that gives me good feelings. However, as hopeful and hyped I was then after that day, nothing happened anymore. I still had to look for a seat on my own, find budgets on my own. In my experience, I didn't get any help. Eventually, I confronted them with how I felt asking to look into my file to check what actually happened during those months. But I never got an answer to that. A week later, we mutually decided to stop working together. Of course, this is how I experienced it. I can't speak for anybody else, and maybe I see it completely different than what the reality actually is. I don't hold grudges to them, and in a way, it got me where I am today. After that, I looked for many opportunities, found them, but they always ended the same. Bring the money and we let you race. Isn't this the most wrong way, by the way? You, as a driver, has to pay for doing your job. It's like telling Messi to pay money so you let him play in your team. Or if you have to pay your boss so they allow you to come to work for him every day from 9 to 5. It's so wrong. It shouldn't be the driver's responsibility to come up with the money so the team can race. And not to mention, it's always a gigantic amount of money, every year again. People that don't come from a rich background just can't race. If you put a driver with immense talent but no money next to a driver with zero talent but immense money, who do you think they will choose? Right, the one with the money. It's probably the most disgusting side of the sport. This frustrated me a lot and still does. But despite that, I decided to keep on fighting, to find other ways, to be creative and make sure my childhood dream will come true. This is why I decided to start my own team. With this team, I want to change the sport. I want to change the budget problems we as drivers face every day to make sure talent can be prioritized again above money. I have strategies for that, and together with the right people I met, I will build a team that stands for change. A team that goes against the stream, fights for what is right. And that why, ladies and gentlemen, is why you are listening to a podcast with the name Pirate in it. A pirate fights the mainstream world, the society how it is with the rich having benefits too. They fight as a collective team, at least when they are on the same boat. They fight and share it among them. They give back to their team. These thoughts and values is something we will carry on in our values too. Fight as a team against mainstream behavior in racing and give back to your own team and people. How we will do this is something I won't go deeper in for now, because then the episode will be 7 days long. While we are trying to change the sport, we also want to change some other things. We want to get more diversity in the sport. We would love to work with a female driver, driver of color, drivers with an LGBTQ plus background. Like this, we hope to not only represent and inspire young kids to pursue a career in the racing world, but we also hope to inspire other teams to give more chances to these people as well. Our first goal now is to be on the start of the Belcar Endurance Championship. So calling every driver listening to this right now. Wow, major Optimus Prime vibes. Calling every driver listening right now. We are looking for drivers to complete our lineup. So if you like what we want to achieve and you want to join us, just contact us. Okay, so after my TED Talk, I still didn't answer some questions, so let's get into that now. A few are actually already answered, such as what made me get into racing, so why not go for some more fun questions too? Let's go. First one. What's your favorite childhood memory? Well, every time I think about my childhood, I have to think about all the things I did together with my brother and sister. I am the youngest of the three, and we actually always did some crazy and dangerous things. Mostly influenced by my brother, who is the oldest, of course. So, besides the typical things kids did in the 90s and early 2000s, such as, for example, skating, we also wanted to give life that little extra adrenaline. One of the things I remember the clearest is cycling down a pile of plastic boxes. Let me clarify. Our parents had a flower store, and the flowers were always delivered in those plastic boxes. There were black boxes, and there were flashy orange ones. Unlike the black ones, the orange ones had a flat surface on the bottom. So what we did was this. We made a higher tower of those orange ones, made a smaller one, another one, and so on, until it was a stair. But it was super unsteady, because obviously we weren't engineers and just put them on each other. So when you walked on them or climbed them, you already had to balance super hard to make sure to not fall down. And we did it with a bike. What's the bike for? Well, to drive down these very unstable, flashy orange plastic stairs. It's just crazy that we didn't get some serious injury during things like that all the time. The image of that wobbly stairs is just something that always pops up in my mind when I think about my childhood. If you could have coffee with an historical figure, who would you choose? I would definitely choose Neil Armstrong. I'm a massive space geek. I'm obsessed even. I consume everything about space in any form possible. So, naturally, having coffee with the first man to step on the moon to hear about his stories and experiences regarding that would be the best coffee moment spent. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I'm 100% an introvert. So the fact that you are listening to a podcast with me as a host is actually something strange. Tell me about the two most influential people in your life and how they impacted you. Yeah, probably my mom, since she raised me. Other than that, I would go for Sebastian Vettel. I grew up in my teenage years watching him race in Formula 1 and win 4 championships. He's my hero. I look up to him very much, not just in terms of racing, but also to him as a human being. I learned a lot from him. At the end of last season, he retired, which was painful. Luckily, I could witness him race twice in real life. I will definitely miss him watch racing, but he will always be my greatest hero. What occupation other than your own would you like to try? I think I will stay in the sport world for that again. I'm a big cycling fan. I love to ride my own bike too. It's a good way to train, but also to make your head empty. But also to think about a lot of things, life, career-wise, and so on. You come to places you wouldn't usually go in your daily life, you meet people. So I would go for a cyclist career. It also involves the racing adrenaline, of course. Last year I started participating in cycling events. I did 2 road events and 1 gravel event. This year my goal is to do those again, but be better than last year. I also want to do a few more. I will need some good preparation and training, but that makes it fun and exciting too. In your opinion, what is the most important trait of strength someone would need to work in your industry? Be social. Contacts are everything in the racing world. But next to that, be a business person. If you can't think and operate as a business person, those contacts are worthless. You have to talk like one, walk like one, think like one. Those two things go definitely hand in hand, and I'm still working on them. I already came a long way, but I'm still far from perfect. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give one piece of advice, what would it be? Follow your dreams. No matter what people say, just go for it. Society might not work with you either, but think about this. In 80 years on your deathbed, do you want to have regrets of not following your dreams, or do you want to say that you did it? Even if it didn't work out, at least you tried, and you don't need to have regrets. Think out of the box, be creative, find ways, try everything you can. How would you like to be remembered? As someone that was passionate about his dreams and life, someone that was a pioneer in the racing world. But most of all, I want to be remembered as someone that was inspiring, kind, helpful, honest, trustworthy, and a good person. What are your ambitions for the future? My ambitions. First of all, to race with my own team in the Bell Car Endurance. To be successful in the vision I have for my team. Inspiring people, creating diversity, making talent a priority. Another ambition is to build a team up until we eventually race in the World Endurance Championship and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And if we can dream a bit more, win the 24 Hours of Le Mans and become world champion. So, these were some questions. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode and that you got to know me better. If you would have any questions that you want to have answered in the future, you can send them in a message on our socials. I would love to make this podcast interactive with you, so let's hear about you. Thanks for joining me in this episode. If you want to stay in touch or keep up to date with the latest news about Pirate Racing Club, You can find all the information in the description below. See you next time.